Good morning and welcome to Wellspring. Zoomland, we will now mute you and unmute you after the service ends. My name is Judy Bethman and I'm part of your Sunday, July 3rd, 2022 worship team. Half the year is gone, people. Okay, we have a few announcements. Okay. Having tried to do that, I have a new appreciation. Yay. Okay. Early Birds meets on Sunday mornings at 9:30 via Zoom. The link is on the weekly email and on the website. Upcoming speakers, July 10th is Dr. Edward. July 17th is a video, The Power of Spirituality in Dehumanizing Times by Karina Gerhardt-Strichen. July 24th is Dr. Edward, and July 31st will be Randy Granger. We are having a movie night and ice cream social, July 10th at 7 o'clock, and the movie is The Secret, Part 2. I didn't know there were 2 parts. Okay. The Thursday evening group will begin series of videos by Greg Braden. He is a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, scientist, international educator, and renowned as a pioneer in the emerging paradigm based in science, social policy, and human potential. Each evening will consist of a video by Greg, followed by a discussion amongst the group. The first 4 weeks will cover the 7 Essene mirrors, followed by 4 weeks of other cogent topics. The series begins next week, July 7th at 7 p.m. and will last for 8 weeks. Meetings will be held in person in the Wellspring Social Hall and on Zooms. See or email Edward or Cleona for more information. Is there a New Thought Ladies Luncheon for July? Well, I'm going to assume there is. Thursday, July 21st, starting at 11:30. We were supposed to be contacted about, was it a success last time or? Okay, so let's assume that it's going to be every third Thursday of the month. Okay. And lastly, our prayer team remains ready to serve and support you. You may submit a request via our webpage. Our prayer team meets virtually on Tuesday afternoons at 4:15 to pray with you. You may consider sitting in your quiet space during that time. We know we are one in spirit, and the energy of prayer knows no limits. All right. As we start the invocation, let us sit back and relax. Take a deep breath in and release. As we release all the cares of the past week. As we breathe in, we invite Spirit to come into our body temples, as well as this church sanctuary. We know that Spirit is all around, and we are assured of its divine magnificence and intervention in our lives, even when we not realize it. Thank you very much, Spirit, for manifesting yourself to us and with us. And so it is. Please stand if you are able. We have a new song of joy this month, Top of the World. See where the little hand is? That's when we're going to go. Clap. Okay? On the top of the world, looking down on creation, and the only explanation job, everyone. Okay. Now we're going to do our vision, mission, and affirmation. Our vision: to elevate spiritual consciousness in our world. Our mission: to support individual spiritual quests through celebration, study, counsel, loving fellowship, and service. Our affirmation: as summer is upon us, we marvel at how the seasons follow one another, ever changing in a universal pattern. The divine intelligence is ever expressing itself in the continuous movement of the earth, the sun, and the universe. We acknowledge and affirm that that same divine intelligence is expressing through us and leading us to ever grateful and more joyful experience. For this we are grateful, and so it is. And now we have our friend Doug Adams back. Thank you, gentlemen. That was lovely. Wow. All right. I don't know, all of a sudden I've got a frog in my throat. The reading from, can you give me the water over there? Thanks. You got me choked up. The reading for the day is taken from the Science of Mind, which we call our textbook, and it's on page 110. The meaning of freedom implies the possibility of suffering, because if we are free only by virtue of the possibility of choosing more than one course of action as an experience. There is no freedom or happiness as a spontaneous individuality unless there can be temporary restriction of bondage and unhappiness through the wrong use of freedom. All things are possible to the infinite, but the infinite forever remains true to its own nature and never contradicts itself. If a man takes his image of thought only from his previous experiences, then he continues in the bondage which those previous experiences create. If we talk about discord, we shall become discordant. If we talk about the more the world arms for war, the more certain it is there will be war. People who spend all their time talking about their unhappiness will become more unhappy. Jesus understood these great laws of cause and effect in the universe, which work sometimes with apparent slowness, but always with sureness. Eventually, we shall understand that all human bondage is an invention of ignorance. Whew. Grant me patience, Lord, but hurry, right? Okay, it's my great pleasure to welcome back our beloved Reverend Kamatara.
Well, thank you, Judy. That was the perfect reading. And thank you, Doug and Barry. Oh my gosh, skills. You're so talented. And I know from one fiddle player to another, not violin, I play fiddle, and it's not easy. You would not want me up here playing. But I admire tone and pitch, and oh my gosh, that was gorgeous. And I also love that song, Ashokan Farewell. If you've seen the Ken Burns PBS Civil War series, they use that song in it. So, and I love folk music. So if you were to look up the album Harvest Home by Jay Unger and Molly Mason, it's on that album, if you want to find it. But your version was better. I'm just saying. Okay, so enough music nerd stuff. I can't resist. Had to go there. Okay, so happy 4th of July. Freedom 4th. Americans, we love us our freedom. It's a big topic. And I could say, especially right now, but that's not true. It's always a big topic throughout human history. It wouldn't matter when you're talking. It's always a big topic, an essential quality that people want or strive for. It's a big, hairy deal. But I think the word freedom is a little bit like the Star-Spangled Banner. When I was teaching American Lit, I would ask my beloved juniors, hey, can you sing the Star-Spangled Banner? Oh, yes, Mrs. Johnson. And I would march them over to the choir room and I would play piano and everyone would be singing. They knew all the words. Okay, close the piano. What does it mean? I don't know. Do you even know what spangled means? No, I'm just kidding. They had no clue. They had no, and most people really don't. They don't know anything about our national anthem. that you're singing to a fabulous British drinking tune, and that there's 4 verses that get more and more aggressively violent and disturbing. If you ever want to be disturbed, look at all the verses of our national anthem. It's super fun. But yeah, people love to sing it, but they don't necessarily know what it means. Okay, let's make the transfer. People love to sing about freedom, but I don't know if people really know what it means. I don't know if people ever have unpacked it and thought about it. To really think, what does it mean when we say freedom? What does it look like in reality? Practical application and outpicturing of freedom, or how would it feel to be free? As our friend Nina Simone sings that beautiful song, right? And here's an interesting thought. How free does one have to be to feel like you're free, or to qualify as freedom? Is it 51% free? Is it 75% free? Does it have to be 100% free in every arena of your life to officially be free? What would it have? Is that even possible? Right? This is a little more complicated than just, freedom. No, it's messy. It's really complicated. And even if we had freedom, would we even know it? If we had it? Maybe we do. Yeah, it's a hot mess. So welcome to the United States. I love it. And all our messy goodness, right? So when I was a school teacher and I was working on a really difficult, complex word with my students, we would use something called the Freyer model, named after Mr. Freyer. And he would put a word in the middle, and then there was a 4 square. And the first square, it wasn't the definition. The first square was for you to think about, what are the characteristics of that word? What makes that word that word? Okay, so what are the gotta have it's? And you would kind of think about, well, for it to be that word, it's gotta have these things. All right, the next square would ask for non-examples, things you know that are not that. Because sometimes it's easier to name what a thing isn't than it is to name what a thing is. And then the next square would ask for examples. All right, give me concrete examples of that word happening. All right. And then after looking at all of that, the last box is to write your own definition in your own words. Like, how would you pull it all together? So let's play the game. We're going to do a little shout out here with the word freedom. So I'm putting freedom in the middle. And we're going to start with characteristics. In your thinking, what would it have to be for you to say, yep, that's freedom? You could just shout out anything. What are the characteristics of freedom? Release. Liberated. Right? It's a hard one. I struggled. What are some characteristics of freedom? I came up with things like, it's open, that I get to make a choice, that I'm not hindered or impaired or repressed or hemmed in. Like, I got into lots of opposites, and all the words kind of led to open and choice. And maybe some characteristics were like being able to say and do and be and go where I want. I struggled with it. It's abstract. What's the characteristic of freedom? Being free. Oh, you just used a word to define a word. Foul on the play. No, you can't do it. That's hard, right? It's very abstract. But we know it when we have it or feel it, or we know it when we don't have it. Then we feel it big time. Okay, let's move on. What if we thought about non-examples when we aren't free? Can you think of some examples? Judgment, incarceration, control, slavery, constraint, censorship. What was that? It's easy to think of non-examples, right? And oh, I have a list. I was like, oh, invasive laws, financial debt, bureaucracy, me duking it out with the insurance company because they're trying to tell my doctor what they think I need, even though they have no clue. Oh, was that out loud? And relationships that you can't leave, or relationships you can't have out in the open, or maybe you've got a micromanaging boss, that, or just racism, poverty, redlining, sexism. I mean, let's just go right down the list. Anything that feels like an injustice is related typically to a curtailment of freedom. Is curtailment a word? All right, well, it is now. So English teacher prerogative, I'll just make stuff up. All right, so yeah, we can think of non-examples till the cows come home. Let's try to think of examples. Can you think of some concrete examples of exercising freedom or experiencing freedom?
What we're doing right now.
Ooh, high five. What we're doing right now, like we are gathering, we're exploring topics that we want. I have the freedom, Dr. Edwards, like, talk about anything you want. Ooh, okay, that's freedom. I got to drive here. And no one, there were no checkpoints or no, like, you can't, thou shalt not pass. Yeah. And I got to wear what I wanted. And yeah, I get to vote. Yeah, there's all different examples of freedom. Okay. So if we were to swing it around and get into definition land, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Oxford Dictionary, thank you very much. The definition of freedom, it says, the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Okay, that's pretty concrete. I can follow that. And I think when people think about that kind of definition, our minds might immediately go to government. How government curtails our freedom, which in some cases is absolutely true. But I don't want to go there today. I really want to think about other ways that we might be hemmed in. And one of those ways is what Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, called race consciousness. And when he says the word race, he doesn't mean like, oh, it's the color of our skin. No, don't go that route. He means like the human race. Everybody, the whole kit and caboodle from the dawn of time to the present is the human race. And race consciousness is the accumulation of thought patterns, or this is the way we say life is, and it gets passed on from generation to generation. It just keeps building over the years, and people buy into, well, that's just the way things are. That's race consciousness. So now if we were to go back into the glossary, Ernest Holmes writes that race consciousness are human beliefs operating through the mentality of the individual. So if I buy into it, it's the tendency to reproduce what the human race has thought and experienced. This race suggestion or race consciousness is a prolific source of dis-ease. Ouch. And I do have to say, not all race consciousness is bad. It does take some discernment, because some things that have been passed on, it's beautiful, like, oh, respect human life, or all babies are beautiful. Well, I know, maybe not, but we've been taught that. So there are some wonderful things that have been passed on. I'm not trying to say that everything is bad, because it's just not. But a lot of things are not productive paradigms with which to see the world. So we've inherited, or we live in this kind of collective consciousness that can be really trapping or limiting when we have thoughts like, oh, it's flu season, everybody gets sick. Well, guess what? Then I'm gonna get sick. Or, oh, it takes money to make money. Or life is hard. People are out to get me. oh my gosh, that is really a prison. If I'm going to be in battle position all the time, it's exhausting, it's limiting, it creates crazy outcomes that wouldn't even have to happen otherwise. It's wild. So I think one way we might get trapped if we're not aware is that race consciousness, just like what's out there that I might be buying into that isn't even true, capital T. Another way we might really be hemmed in is our own limited thinking and false beliefs of my own doing. So my fabulous individual limited thinking. That could be things like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I always do this, or I can't, insert phrase here, or I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm dumb, insert self-deprecation right there. Ow. Boy, with fronds like this, who needs anemones? Wow. If we're going to be beating ourselves up, this is, rough. That's rough. That's very limiting. That is a prison of our own doing. Like we locked ourselves in the jail cell and we're holding the key and we're like, nah, I think I'll just stay here. Ow. So in the glossary of the Science of Mind textbook, I love that glossary. Someday we'll have gone through the whole thing. I don't know. I'm just kidding. You guys are like, oh God, get her out of here. All right, but his definition, Ernest Holmes' definition of freedom is really amazing. Some of it's classic and you'd say, oh yeah, I totally get that. And some of it is really interesting. So the first thing he says about freedom is real freedom means that man, as in all human beings, like humankind, so we'll just let him have his time period. Okay. Real freedom means that man is created in the image of perfection and let alone and allowed to make the discovery for himself. Oh, isn't that a double-edged sword of freedom? You're already perfect. Now go figure it out. You're free to figure it out. Okay, here's the part that's classic. It sounds like the dictionary. Freedom of will means freedom of will means the ability to do, say, and think as one wishes, to express life as one personally desires. Okay, I get that one. That's like the Oxford Dictionary, yes. Okay, now let's take it a step further. He writes, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, Jesus taught us. The understanding of truth, capital T, infinite principle, is the great emancipator. We are bound by our very freedom. Our free will can also bind us. It can free us as much as it binds us. Because, he goes on to say, the universe, being deductive, cannot refuse us anything. It's just like the reading that Judy did for us. Remember how we say we speak our word and the universe always says, yes, my beloved, I will make that true for you. So be careful what you ask for. You just might get it, right? So he goes on to say, the very force that makes us sick can heal us. Just like the very force that could be our freedom, we're also allowed to make it into a trap. It's up to us. So he goes on to write, as man realizes his oneness with creative mind, he is released from the bondage of false thinking. And then he takes it one further, little zinger at the end. He says, he sees too that freedom means liberty, but not license. And then he just taps out. That's the end of the definition. Like, I don't need to explain it to you. All right, so in my humble explanation of that last little phrase, liberty, but not license, I feel like that means I'm free to do what I want, but there are consequences to my actions. And that, yes, I impact other people, I impact myself. So I am free to make wild mistakes and live absolutely unskillfully and just do, wild and ridiculous things. Or I can choose to evolve consciously. I can learn from my mistakes and I can grow into a greater experience of true freedom. That's that double-edged sword of freedom. But it's a core principle in science of mind. So when Ernest Holmes wrote the Declaration of Principles, remember it's that big gnarly list and each bullet point starts with a "we believe," and then he hits you with a sentence that's almost impossible to read. Such were the times. And the way Ernest Holmes wrote. But really powerful ideas. And my favorite one is the one related to freedom. And I think it's one of the easiest ones to understand. He writes, "We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all." Oh, I love that. That's a great definition of freedom in my mind. If I had no discord in any arena of my life, if I had, and let's flip it to the positive, if I had harmony and peace in every arena of my life, maybe that would feel like freedom. So how do we get there? So I went back to the textbook and I'm flipping through the table of contents, and sure enough, one of the little section headings says, "The road to freedom is not mysterious." I just laughed so hard. Thank you, Uncle Ernie. All right, let's see what we got. Hit me. So he writes, "It is a profound fact and a demonstrable one. The road to freedom lies not through mysteries or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of nature's forces and laws. The law of mind is a natural law. The law of our life reacts to our spiritual concepts and builds and rebuilds according to our beliefs and our faith." I love it. Builds and rebuilds. That is an image. According to our beliefs. And then the last sentence he writes here, "The sooner we discover this fact, the sooner we shall be made free and happy." So it's the classic, as you believe, so you receive. We really are in the driver's seat of our lives, even in the worst situation. You can ask Viktor Frankl, Nelson Mandela, take your choice. We have had people who have shown us over and over that freedom truly is in the spirit and that no one can take that away from us, which is why we study science of mind and new thought philosophy and ancient wisdom and best practices to deepen the capacity of our minds and our hearts to truly be liberated regardless of what is happening around us. And so we really are a liberation theology, as any true faith or philosophy is. We are something that empowers people to live their best lives however they feel called to do that. We are positive and life-affirming and assets-based in a way that brings on more life and abundance and joy and understanding and peace, like building that bridge to that freedom we all want to experience. And it's not to say that it's all sunshine, roses, and lollipops, or it's just hunky-dory, easy, just think your way there. Not saying that at all. But it does mean that the experience we have of life is our choosing. And maybe that's another definition of freedom. So let's go back to that opening question and apply it a little more to our own lives. You know, I love thought experiments and our little metaphysical workbench, so we're just going to pull it out. And I'd love for you to think, in your life, do you have any experiences right now happening in your life where you feel the experience of freedom? Like, that is freedom in action because I just did blank. Just think for a minute. Even one thing where you're experiencing freedom. Okay, with that in mind, what are the characteristics of that experience that you go, yup, that's freedom? What is it about that experience that is freedom? Okay, that's your example, and those are your characteristics. Let's think of a non-example. Even though you may have multiple examples, let's just think of one non-example. Is there any area in your life that does not feel free? Maybe it feels like a trap, or it's a burden, or you feel like, I can't move in this area. It's stuck. Just one area. Okay. What characteristics is it missing that would help it to be freedom? What is it missing? What would it look like if that situation were free to you? What would have to happen to get there? Can you just even imagine some things that might help it to feel more free? So are there any changes that you could make to help foster more freedom in that experience? And I'm going to give you a little tip, especially for the people that are shaking their heads like, good Lord, save me, Jesus. Because there are some situations, one that I'm thinking of in particular, where there's literally nothing that I could say or do to help that situation. It is so like outside of my control. It's based on other people. I got nothing except one thing. If there's nothing that I can say or do to make the situation better, then what I can do is focus on how I am with the situation, how I be with the situation. If it's not a do or a say, it's a be kind of answer. How can I make my peace with this situation regardless of what happens? Or how can it's going to be an inside answer. I'm just giving you that little hint right now. So is there something on the inside that I need to work on to experience more freedom in that arena? Because the choice really is up to us and our free will of how we experience life, no matter what gets tossed our way, no matter the laws, the regulations, the requirements, the society, the relationships, the other people. It doesn't matter. We're as free as we choose to be. So I hope that this week you can recognize the freedoms that you do have and to really enjoy them, to relish it, and really consider, are there any arenas where I could maybe foster more? Whether it's outside or inside, how might we foster more this beautiful experience of freedom? So that way your freedom forth is just really exciting and beautiful and absolutely delicious. So thank you. All right. Well, one thing we can always do when we're headed towards freedom is pray. That helps us do the inner work. And it's not a prayer trying to tell God what to do. It's a prayer trying to remember who and what we are and that truth, capital T, that sets us free. So let's go into that space. Dropping down and into that space where I know there is only one loving source, the all that is. This sacred spirit, the one love, one heart, one mind, pick your words to express the inexpressible. This is the something sacred going on that's expressing as me, as you, as all of life as we know it, and even beyond what we can understand. And there is no separation. Each one of us is the one body in the greater one body. The drops in that ocean that is all one. And knowing that each one of us is an expression of the divine, I know that I am aligned with the divine that is the presence and power within, as are you, as we are in this sacred space, absolutely an expression of the divine. And so we each are whole, complete, and perfect. And we each, in our perfection, have the amazing gift of freedom. And it's a powerful gift that comes with great responsibility to have liberty but not license. And so in this moment, I accept that gift of freedom in all its messy goodness to learn and grow and to choose things that are unskillful and make wild mistakes and learn from my mistakes and grow into a deepened expression and understanding and compassion and everything that comes from the free will of this human experience that deepens my understanding of our divinity, that deepens my compassion for myself and for others. And so I accept full responsibility of my choices. And when I feel like I have no choice, I surrender it to the divine. I allow myself to open up and hear the infinite possibilities that could happen in this moment. And what would Spirit do? What is Spirit's highest vision for the best and highest good of this situation? And allow those answers to come and to flow through me as Spirit, as me, knowing that I am bringing my best to every situation. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to reconnect to the truth, capital T, to remember that I am free, regardless of seeming appearance, that I really am free as I choose to be. I am so grateful for how this world is just stacked in our favor, a winner every time. And so knowing that all is well and unfolding in divine right order through our choices, I let it go and let it be, and so it is. Amen.
Always get me thinking. You always get me thinking. It's like freedom. Well, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Feeling good was easy, Lord. I was thinking of trying one unplanned, but now that we're here. Oh, yeah. Don't play on this one because I don't know what I'm doing. We'll go back to that one. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Well, that wasn't the one. That was a bonus track. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, and now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. How I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. It was grace that brought us safe this far, and grace will lead us home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, and now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we have no less days to sing God's praise than if we'd first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And hallelujah.
Because it was on a slavery ship that man wrote those words. Wow, I've got chills. Okay. All right. As we acknowledge and receive our virtual and in-person gifts, we give great thanks for the offerings already given and those we will be receiving, because we know that giving and receiving are both part of the one flow. We affirm that we are also a part of that flow. We bless these gifts and know that they are multiplied throughout our community. And we thank you for joining us today. There are a number of folks who've contributed to the production of this service at the last minute, mind you. And Brenda got out of her sick hovel. Thank you very much, Brenda. We are grateful for your service. And we thank you for joining us today in Zoom land and here in the sanctuary. It was very insightful, and I can't tell you, I can't even express what I'm feeling right now. Thank you so much, everyone. And lastly, stay around in the Zoom meeting after the service to visit or join with us into the social hall. Please stand if you are able and read the benediction with me. Spirit, in the midst of us is mighty. Joy, peace, and eternal life are our true nature and flow through us into the world. And so it is.